For the fifth consecutive year, the Lakers not a part of the NBA Finals. So what went wrong and what is it going to take to get them back there? We are joined now by Laker beat writer Jovan Buha of The Athletic. Jovan, one playoff game victory. One for the Lakers. So how big of a failure was this season?
It was a failure from the context of a results perspective. Obviously, the Lakers did not expect to only win one game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think if you look at their potential path, there was a clear pathway to have the success that the Timberwolves had and to go to the Western Conference Finals and play Oklahoma City, who they just beat in Oklahoma City in that baseball style 2-game set that they had up there. And then we're up in the fourth quarter before Luka Doncic got unceremoniously ejected, and that technical foul ended up getting rescinded. So they felt solid with that potential matchup against Oklahoma City in the conference finals, but it is certainly a failure. And I think I picked them to win the series in 6. I gave Minnesota a little bit more respect than some people did. A lot of people were picking the Lakers in 5, but certainly this was not the result that they expected. And looking at how things shook out with Steph getting injured in the second round, again, Lakers had a pathway to the conference finals if they got past Minnesota, and just didn't happen.
So the season ends, and on his way out the door, J.J. Redick, his closing remarks regarding the shape of this team, saying that players, some were in great shape, many were not in championship shape. What did you make of those comments, and why do you think he went public with those comments?
So clearly everyone took that as a shot or a perceived shot at Luka Doncic. And if you watch that first round series, he could have been in better shape. He could have had better conditioning. And I agree with that assessment. However, I think this goes beyond just physical shape. I think you could look at championship shape as mental shape and emotional shape as well. And I don't think the Lakers were mentally and emotionally prepared for that first round series. I go back to the game 1 that they lost by 20 plus points, and it was like they just didn't look ready for game 1 of the playoffs. And I don't think it's just a physical thing. Like, yes, Luka could have been in better shape. He could lose some more weight. Austin Reeves got banged up in game 3 and was dealing with a toe injury that, well, he's unable to walk at times in between games. LeBron had been dealing with several things late in the season. So like they have their built-in excuses or reasons, however you want to deem it. But I think it goes beyond that. I think from a mental and emotional perspective, this group was not where they needed to be. They just did not look ready for the playoffs. They did not look to be on the same page in the playoffs. So for me, I actually read it deeper than just the physical shape, but certainly all 3, factors apply to why they lost. And I think several guys could be in better shape going to next season. And I think that's something that they're going to be looking to address this summer.
Now, this may be a better question for Captain Obvious, but what is the number 1 item that should be on Rob Pelinka's shopping list this offseason?
A starting caliber center who can protect the rim and be a lob threat with Luka Doncic in the pick and roll. But I would contend that the second thing, and it's a close second, is a starting caliber 3-and-D wing who could defend in the backcourt and on the wing. And I think that they were trying to fit guys like Rui Hachimura and Dorian Finney-Smith and even Austin Reeves into that role, and those guys weren't equipped to do that. I think they held up as well as they could given some of their defensive limitations, but like they need a true wing defender. If you look at these teams that have advanced to the conference finals or the finals, they all have multiple wing defenders who can defend multiple positions adequately. The Lakers don't even have one, in my opinion. So I would say that, like, clearly the center spot was a disaster last year. It's really been a disaster for a while, depending on, like, outside of Anthony Davis, they've had a revolving door of minimum centers. So that is something they need to address this summer. But I would say a close second that I don't see being talked about as much is a true perimeter defender who can space the floor around Luka, LeBron, and Austin and defend multiple positions, because they don't have that guy either. So I think those are the 2 things that they have to address this summer if they want to be a contender next season.
All right, so let's start with the big man, and there's going to be a lot of names out there that are potential fits. You got Claxton, you got Pirtle, you got Collins. Miles Turner has been mentioned. Who do you think is the best fit? Who's the guy that if you could get anyone you wanted, if a Laker fan could pick any guy that he wanted, who's the guy?
I think it's Nick Claxton. And the one thing with him is because of his salary, he's making about $25 million. You are going to have to give up at least a couple, if not 3 players in that trade, in addition to draft compensation. So that is going to be an expensive price. But if you look at the center market right now, teams are hoarding centers. Like one name that's been floated out there is Goga Batadze from Orlando, who's their backup center. And it's like teams just don't want to give up even their backup centers in trades because size has become a priority for the league. We saw the shift to small ball and centerless basketball, and it's been shifting back over the last few years where, especially when looking at like a Jokic, you need multiple bigs to defend a guy like that. So teams don't really want to give up their centers. The prices are high. So I think a guy like Claxton, it is likely going to cost the Lakers a first-round pick and probably a Dalton Connect. And that's to say nothing of actually matching the salary of his $25 million. So I think among all the realistic candidates, Claxton is to me the guy who play in the pick and roll with Luka, is a really good lob threat, really good rebounder, and a switchable, versatile rim protector defensively. Another guy I like is Daniel Gafford from Dallas. He is someone who's had success with Luka, was a starting center for Dallas on their way to that finals run in 2024. However, after making the Luka trade, I don't know if Dallas is going to be exactly thrilled to try to trade with the Lakers again. I think the fan base might revolt if they send the Lakers a starting caliber center. He's also someone who needs to get paid. He's extension eligible and is looking for an upgrade in that regard. So I think those are the 2 guys. If you look at free agency, there's really not much out there. Like Brook Lopez is 37, no longer as mobile defensively, more of a 3-point shooter than a pick and roll guy. Clint Capella isn't as athletic and spry as he used to be. He's also 31. So like you go down the list and there's not a lot of options in free agency. So I think if the Lakers are truly going to address this, it probably has to come in the trade market. And that's going to require, if I'm any team trading with the Lakers, I'm asking for the first-round pick and Dalton Connect. They already set the price at the trade deadline by trading that for Mark Williams before rescinding it. So I think that's the going rate, is like you need Dalton Connect and a first, and that's something that the Lakers are going to have to grapple with in terms of, are they willing to give that up?
You think the Mavericks fans might revolt? I think that ship has sailed, Jovan.
Well, like a second revolt, a second protest outside the arena.
Yeah. All right, so you mentioned a guy like Dalton Connect as possible trade bait, but let's go bigger than that. Let's go deep into your crystal ball here. Give me a bold prediction. Tell us the biggest name currently on the Laker roster that will not be on this team next year.
If you are forcing me to go bold here, I will go with Rui Hachimura. I think that's the guy that when you look at the foundation of the Lakers starting lineup, right? So let's say they have the new center in place. They have LeBron, they have Luka. I think they're going to have Austin Reeves in there as the secondary ball handler and one of the backcourt spots. That leaves that 5th spot. And I think if you look at what they need for that 5th starter, it needs to be a more defensive minded, versatile type wing stopper that I think Rui has grown a lot as a Laker. I think he's grown a lot on the defensive end, but that's just not in his wheelhouse. He doesn't have the mobility. He doesn't have the agility to guard elite wings and to even downsize and guard guards. So I think when you look at the spot that they really need, it is that 3-and-D guy who can defend multiple perimeter positions. And that's just where Rui, I think, is a bit limited for that specific role. It's just not really what he does. So I think if the Lakers are looking to upgrade the roster, it is potentially going to have to come at the expense of including a Rui with a Dalton, with a first, and that either bringing in that center or that bringing in that wing. So I think if you're looking at the top of the roster, he's the 3rd highest paid guy. And I would say their 4th best player, but he just doesn't quite fit, I think, the way you want him to next to LeBron specifically. I think there's a lot of overlap there. So I think if they're going to trade one of the top guys toward the top of the roster, I think Rui is the guy who would be most likely to be dealt.
Word is LeBron James will likely opt into his $53 million option. He is going to start a season in which he will turn 41 on December 30th. At what point do we have to factor in a decline for a guy who's playing in his 40s. Only 25 players, I believe, in NBA history have played into their 40s. Very few have done it successfully. LeBron still was spectacular a year ago, but at what point do we have to say it's going to have a fall off at some point?
I mean, it could be next season. And if you go back to this past season, the first like 20 games or so, LeBron did not look like LeBron. It felt like Father Time was finally winning the battle against him. And then in early December, he had a shift. That they had some rough losses. They had that 41-point drubbing in Miami. That was, to me, the low point of the season. They basically quit in the third quarter of that game, and it was a really embarrassing loss. And from that point on, we saw a different level of engagement from LeBron, both as a leader, but also specifically on the defensive end. And I thought he played some of his best defense as a Laker over the next couple, like 2-3 months. So I think certainly, like from a roster perspective, you would prefer LeBron to take a pay cut, even if it's like a $10 to $15 million pay cut. At the same time, he just finished 6th in MVP voting. He made All-NBA second team by any metric and definition. Like, he was a top 10 player this season. So he's shattering what we think of father time and how guys age. Like, if he plays next season, which all indications are he will, that will be, he'll be the first player in NBA history to play a 23rd season. No player has gone beyond 22 seasons. So he's already in rare air in terms of the longevity of his career, but also the level at which he's still playing at. And I think he had a pretty good series against the Timberwolves, like all things considered. So the cliff is coming at some point, but with the way he's aged and the way he continues to play, it's hard to say it's going to come next season. Maybe there's a slight decline, and a slight decline would hurt the Lakers. Like, they need him to be still a top 10 player next year to truly be a contender. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to blame the guy for not taking a pay cut just because he's still producing at that level. Like, if you just take away the age and you look at the production, he's worth $53+ million easily.
Conversely, you've got a team like the OKC Thunder that could be one of the youngest NBA champions ever. So that being said, and with the West seemingly every year getting better and better and better, can Laker fans out there truly believe that this team, this Laker team, can do enough to compete in the West next year without wholesale changes?
It's a good question. And I think they are going to have to be aggressive this summer in using the assets that they have. They do have limited resources to upgrade the roster. They have some expiring contracts. They have one tradable first-round pick, either in 2031 or 2032. And then they have the rookie contract, a rookie scale contract of Dalton Connect, who is going to be a cost-controlled, team-friendly deal for the next few years. So they have to find a way to work some magic with those assets. The one thing I would say for the Lakers is they've prioritized finding the best deal possible and extracting the most value out of their assets. And that has often led them to waiting until the trade deadline to execute a lot of these moves. You go back to 2023 when they do the Russ trade and remake the group. They go to the conference finals. They go, this past trade deadline, the Luka trade, the Mark Williams trade before it gets rescinded. My one thing with them is I think they need to prioritize making deals in the summer more and building the roster they want now. And then if you need to make a tweak in season with whatever assets you have remaining, you try to make the tweak then. But I think trying to rebuild the roster midway through the season constantly, it just leads to a lack of continuity. And we kind of hear the same excuse from them every summer where, well, we only had 30 games with this group. We only had a small sample size. And it's like, well, part of that is self-inflicted. Part of that is them waiting to make a deal at the deadline rather than making a deal in the summer. And yes, the prices are going to be higher. Yes, there are more restrictions with some of their options in the summer. But I think their goal should be build the best roster possible in June and July and August, go into the season with that group and try to see if that group can make it to April, May, and June. And then again, if you need to make a tweak in February. But to be like, let's play one way for 50 games, then we're going to make some big trades, remake the group, remake the starters, remake the rotation, and then try to win with that group for like 30 games. I just don't think that's sustainable. I think you saw all 4 teams in the conference finals. None of them made big moves in the season. They all made their big moves last summer. And I think that needs to be the goal for the Lakers.
Hard to argue with that. Jovan, always fun talking hoops with you. Thanks for hanging with us today.